Hi, and welcome to Cookbook, brought to you by Sundress Publications, Sundress Academy for the Arts. Today our guest is going to be Kevin Hollo. Kevin is a poet and a musician. He's in a local band called Montauk Trash. He's a singer, writes music, does a lot of fun things, works with computers. And he's going to teach us how to make a mushroom risotto, which is good because I can make all the pasta dishes, but I've never made a risotto. So this is really going to add to the skill set. Once we get the risotto made, we're going to sit down and talk to him about the band, talk to him about his own writing, things he's working on, and figure out what's coming up next for the band. I know they put out an EP last year, so maybe there's something new coming up. So thank you for joining us, and welcome to Cookbook. Hollo here in the official cookbook kitchen here, and he's going to teach us how to do a mushroom risotto. The man has already gotten to work. What is the first thing we do?
So we're going to saute the mushrooms. And the cool thing about risotto that I love is that it's just easy. One pot or one pan, and most people think it's like a fancy dish, and it's not. It's, as we'll see, throw some butter in the pan, and we don't do a lot of measuring around here. We will get into the measurement with the stock as it gets incorporated and stuff when we do the rice, but first just saute the mushrooms. Once they're ready, probably about 5-10 minutes, take them out and we use the same pan for the rice.
It sounds like the antithesis of like paella, because I've made paella before, and you always end up with like 12 things that you've cooked on.
Yeah, that's a little more. There's a little more involved with the paella.
It looks like the dish room in The Sword and the Stone sort of thing by the end of it, and you need Merlin to come in and take care of everything. Yeah, exactly. So this sounds much better.
Yeah, this will be better. And we'll go heavy on the butter, because you know what? It's really good butter.
We got the good butter. It's very exciting.
You got the good butter. And you can never have too much butter.
So is this a staple in the Hollo house?
It's one of them. I think when it gets time for the cold weather stuff,
sure,
I like a risotto.
Well, it's thick enough.
Yeah. Starch. I like starches. I like gluten. Gluten free. Gluten please.
Well, so far we had vegan chocolate chip cookies. That was the one specially added so far, and they were delicious.
I'll try anything.
It was real chocolate. I mean, it was.
Is real chocolate vegan?
No, it was. I mean, it was.
The carob. They use carob. I know all about. I worked for a. It was called Wild Oats, and it was Whole Foods-esque, and then Whole Foods acquired them. They purchased Wild Oats, so the little man got subsumed into the big man.
Sure.
So this was in kind of 02, 03, and that was like the dawn of like a lot of the dieting and stuff because now like de rigueur, so like gluten free and raw foodists. So I had people coming in that were raw foodists, and they would not eat anything that was cooked or processed. So that was like an eye opener for me, and I learned a lot about.
You tried all the things.
Well, I learned a lot about the diets and whether or not I wanted to do them. I don't. I love pizza, love burgers. But no, it was cool to like get that education, so you kind of understand at least, the why behind it. So it's not just like a fad.
It doesn't just sound like madness. It just sounds, well, okay, I get why this part works. And
I mean, some people do it for health reasons. Other people do it for just a lifestyle, or to like vegan. I mean, the same thing. There's a lot of ideology behind that.
Yeah.
A lot of beliefs, and I get it. Humanely raised and all that stuff.
In my wife's middle school, they showed a video of like chickens, and it completely changed her life. It was like the processing of chickens, and she was never the same.
Yeah, dude.
And just sort of carried that for now 2 decades.
I mean, I don't want to see any of that stuff.
No, you don't want.
Because then it's going to ruin my midnight.
That's right. When you want the chicken nuggets.
That's right. That's right.
And in this house, we have chicken nuggets that are in the shape of dinosaurs. There's nothing better than that.
Dino nuggets are a staple.
And nothing natural about that at all.
So wait, there weren't dinosaurs? Shit.
That's all right. But any T-Rex dipped in barbecue sauce is going to be delicious.
So these guys smell good. Can't smell that on the video, but we'll pull these off here in a sec, and we'll get the rice going.
Sure. So start with the mushroom, and then you do the stock and the rice.
Yeah. So the rice, typically, I will saute the rice in some butter just to kind of toast it a little bit.
Now, if you didn't do the mushroom one, you had brought up multiple vegetables. What combinations do you like?
Oh, like asparagus is really good.
Okay.
You could blanch that and broil that maybe, get a little crispy, and then, you know, the beautiful thing about the risotto, it's like a pasta. I mean, you can do anything to it.
Sure.
You can make it sweet, you can make it savory, and it's going to work with any number of different vegetables or proteins.
Sure.
We'll keep the butter party alive. You bought a stick of butter. This might disappear before we're done.
That's all right.
So yeah, we'll actually we will use a little bit of oil, just a tiny bit.
For my own butter collection, I bought the garlic herb kind to try on some bread last night, and it was delicious.
Bread and butter could be my favorite thing in the world. I'm not a very complicated person.
There were some late night grilled cheese sandwiches made by my wife. She was very excited to do that.
This is already nice and hot. That's the beauty of the cast iron. This is the part of the video that we edit out because Kevin cannot open the bag of rice. Oh, do you have a measuring cup?
Yep.
Like a little spoon for...
Oh, like for dry ingredients?
Yeah.
How much you need?
Quarter to half, fine.
Just half?
Awesome. Because we are going to do... full peppers.
So now why do you put it in with the butter?
So I'm going to toast it.
Okay.
And this is not a necessary step, but if you toast the rice, it's kind of like a, you know, flavor and aroma heightener.
Sure.
It's going to bring out the whatever.
It sort of sticks to it a little bit better?
Well, and it's just going to like open it up. It's going to make it a little more, not porous, but it's going to absorb more flavor out of the stock.
Sure.
Yeah. So just, you know, let it sit in the butter for maybe 2-3 minutes, and then we'll get the stock going and start the cooking.
Excellent.
Yeah. And it's because it takes a while. I mean, it'll give us a chance to talk too while we cook it. That's
Sure.
another good reason to pick the risotto for this film series.
Excellent. So who taught you how to make risotto?
I don't even, you know.
Or did this come with the Wild Oats training?
It really did. So
Okay.
Wild Oats was awesome for a lot of reasons. It made a lot of great friends. It was a cool company to work for. I left to go to grad school where we met.
Yep.
But another, you know, just kind of byproduct of being there was I was running the kitchen, food service or whatever, and we had some really talented chefs come through. I mean, guys and gals that were, you know, either classically trained or, you know, lifelong restaurant people, and they would come in and, you know, because it was my kitchen and they were working for me, I was like, all right, you're gonna teach me how to do this. And, you know, they would share secrets, knife skills, you know, all the stuff that I ended up learning, I learned from them. So
Sure.
And though a lot of the production we were doing was like more, it's like a deli case, so you're kind of doing big salads and tons of, you know, tons of volume. But there was still some like, you know, classic, you know, proteins and beef tenderloin and would, you know, trim silver skin off of stuff, you know.
But it sounds delicious. It sounds like you guys were putting good work into it.
It was good food, yeah. I mean, I was happy for a while, and then grad school called.
And grad school, sure.
So we'll get the stock going.
You said a cup at a time.
Yeah, so you can't overwhelm the rice. This is not a tough dish to make, and I like it because you don't have to really mess with it once you get it going. But you do want to just do one at a time, because otherwise it'll take too long to cook. And then you'll end up with crunchy rice, and we don't want that.
That's a different meal.
We'll let this guy simmer for a minute.
Okay. And then about how often do you put in, or is it an eyeball?
It's an eyeball, so every time it gets incorporated, and you'll start seeing the rice kind of grow and like thicken and become more like what you expect risotto to look like.
Sure.
And at the very end, as we keep stirring, there won't be any liquid. Like you'll pull the rice across the pan, there won't be any liquid left.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, you kind of know.
And then you add the mushrooms once that's all.
We'll throw that back in. Okay. Yeah. And you know, we could put like Parmesan on top. We could do, you know,
add the various proteins depending on.
Yeah, anything you want. I had sort of a Gouda dip at home, and I just did this actually. That's why I thought of making it today with you. It was just like a smoked jalapeno Gouda dip.
You made a Gouda dip?
No. I wish. But I bought it, and then once I made the risotto, I dropped like a spoonful in the middle of it, and then covered it up and let it sit for a minute.
Sure.
And it got all melty and gooey, and it was really good.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, I should have brought that with me. A little secret ingredient.
All right, well, we're going to let the stock do its thing, and this is going to take a little while. So while this is cooking, we'll be checking it periodically. And I'll give Kevin and I a chance to sit down and talk about Lord knows what, but who knows. I have a very yummy mushroom medley risotto made, thanks to Kevin, who took over, and all those cups of chicken stock and so forth.
We don't know how it tastes, so we'll see.
But we've got some refreshments here, and it'll give me a chance to catch up with Kevin and figure out, I don't know, you were always an eclectic dude. What's been going on?
Well, so we've been talking a lot about music today. And actually just played a show last night. My band Montauk Trash played Double Happiness with a couple of other great bands, local guys called WV White, very cool band, check them out. We've got a new album coming out soon, on Alex Bleeker and the Freaks from the East Coast, New Jersey. It was great, and you know, a lot of people. So, you know, Darren and I met in a grad program at Miami University, and both sort of engaged with poetry and creative writing and stuff. And a lot of people ask me like, "So why don't you write poetry anymore? Or, like, how's that going?" And you know, my stock response is usually all that creative energy goes into music.
Sure.
You know, not because I don't like poetry, because I love it and it's always going to be in my blood. But I think, you know, lyrics and having to write all this stuff, it's like that's where that's where the juju goes.
The challenge to write a great pop song is
intense.
Yeah.
No, it is hard. So yeah, the harmonies and trying to make something, you know, earworms is what we call them. An earworm is something that's going to crawl into your head and not leave for a couple of days. And how do you do that? And you know, there's like science behind it, they think, but you know, I'm more of just like, do I love it?
Sure.
And if I love something, you know,
and you said you got people to dance last night, so fucking fantastic.
And if people dance, even better. I mean, but you know, I'd ask the same question of you, and I'm curious about your response. You know, when you write a poem, or and you're very well published, and you know, all the accolades I've seen you gather over the years is impressive, to say the least. But you know, do you still just write for yourself? You know, is it something that, hey, I'm happy with it and I love it?
Right.
That's all that matters.
The question of whether or not like audience comes in, do you start to cater?
Yeah.
Well, my thing is that I've got, and if you peek at the computer downstairs, there's all these blue Post-it notes around. So I'm working on something, researching something, and got things sort of planned in advance. So I've got these weird little things that are always sort of like sound exciting to me, and different way to write, a different way to try things.
But almost strategizing. So you have
Yeah.
like strategy.
So I know what I'm working on. Is it something I need to research? Because I've got that one book of like boxing poems that was like well researched out, and the fight and all the things. I've got a collection that's about when the Weathermen blew up the Thinker up at the Cleveland Museum of Art, and that took research. But then there's some like charge through it sort of things where like I've got a book that's like 3 book-length sequences that's going to come out next year. And one of them is like We Are Arrows, that is all about sort of like bettering, like being better people and things like that. So depending on what's going on, I find these weird little things that gets me excited about it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, all right, well, we're going to do that.
But I like that idea though of strategy, of process, of sort of planning. I mean that, dude, everybody thinks, I think for sure poetry and most art in general is like, it's inspired and I was struck by lightning and I blinked and this thing came out of me and it's so spontaneous, but people don't realize how much legwork goes into it. I think it's kind of fascinating.
And small bits of it come like that. We're like, I'll come up with something that first book I ever had that came out was called As We Refer to Our Bodies. And that was a sequence that I wrote that completely failed. Where like
Why do you think it failed?
Like none of them just didn't work out. I had this great title and I wanted to try to meet the challenge of this idea of what I was putting together, and just nothing ever got picked up and nothing really was even talked about, and just no success at all. But the only thing that worked was the title. And ended up becoming
which is a great title.
Which is a great title. And ended up becoming like a potpourri collection of like different things, like a Ohio sequence and black and white pictures, which were poems about sonograms, and sort of all work together. So sometimes there's the little flashes, but I've never had like a sustained like storm of, well, obviously,
But I mean, I think that's almost a fallacy, right? Like I think most work that's lasting and valuable takes time and energy and planning and foresight, and I mean
well, and then like the thing that we sort of got beat into us at grad school is all the reading that goes into sort of finding your footing and being able to write anything at all.
Right, and I mean to that end with music, I feel like I've been doing research my whole life, and I think that's a good thing. It's we were talking earlier about having friends that maybe are younger than us, and or now our social networks have grown to where and I've always had friends that were like in their 40s and 50s, and then now it's like I have friends that are much younger than me with different kind of cultural touchstones or different sort of access points for some of the music and art and film and stuff. But I value that too, because their input is so different than maybe what I get from like someone that's my own age that I've known for a long time. I don't know. I like the idea of having to work at something and synthesize all this disparate shit that I've been listening to my whole life, and then writing a song or whatever, a poem about it that's going to, not about it, but it will be about it.
Sure.
Right? Because it's going to
touch on. Well, and then you see all the sort of listening to music and all the reading and poetry, and then you get into a community and you've got different people around different things, different influences. And it's easy to see how sometimes it becomes like almost a stasis for people, where they become such a sort of a part of the process of writing that there's not actual writing sort of going on. But if you can take that, like talking to younger people and reading different things, and even if I read a book of poetry that's bad, but if it's bad and weird in a way that you're sort of like, well, that's an interesting sort of angle.
Challenges you to sort of, why is it bad?
Yeah.
Why do I think it's bad?
And why am I still reading it? Like, I know this is like...
Right.
So, I think all of that is sort of touching the nerve and the ecstatic to some point, and you get spun in different ways. And so some of it is a flash, and most of it is, well, I'm just sort of staying on this track of trying things.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned 2 words just now that I have to kind of react to. One is the ecstatic, and the other was spun, which is kind of where I come from, drug parlance for eating psychedelics.
Okay.
So that's where this is going. No, but we were talking last night about the show, and then this morning I was kind of I always try to thank my band after the show, because I couldn't do it without them.
Sure.
And, we're up there together as brothers, and there's that camaraderie and all that. So I was just like sending out my little text, you know, hey, thank you, that was beautiful, we had such a great set, blah, blah, blah. And my best friend Drew just said, you know, transcending, or, you know, transcendence, or, you know, or maybe I transcended. I like that there's the different, you know, verb forms, but because they're all different. But it's a great word, just like yours, that you use to say, you know, I reached a higher level of consciousness. I got out of my head. I got high. I got lifted. You know, whatever you want to call that. Is that still the goal for you? I mean, is not still, but I know that was something you were interested in once upon a time. And
yeah. Well, and once upon a time with alcohol and
no. And that's why I think it's a great conversation, because you know, not, you know, being in recovery and sort of having left that world behind a long time ago, I still, there's a big part of my brain that's wired for it, you know what I mean? And I if I'm gonna get high on stage via headbanging and you know, singing and forgetting of myself and letting that music take over, and then that's a beautiful thing, because I can come off stage, go home, be responsible, get up and work the next day.
And I think there's, especially for the writing process and how much I write, that there had to be a change in the process, and there had to be a change. And still, I recognize that some of that, especially back from the old days, you know, was chemical. And so I sort of, I changed every part of that in terms of, like, the only time I eat sugar is when I'm writing.
Really?
Most of the coffee I drink is when I'm writing.
Yeah.
And so I think you can sort of physically train yourself to, like, okay, these are the physical cues. I've got a piece of pie and coffee, and okay, it's time. And so the rest of my diet is, like, pretty strict in one way or the other. But when I sit down to write, at least once a day, there's one of those sort of trigger things.
When it becomes a ritual.
Yeah.
And I love the ritual. I mean, I think I've always longed for more ritual in my life, and maybe just, you know, I've never, when it comes to the creative, and this is true for work too, you know, doing professional work, and I've never been like, I mean, the only ritual in my life is coffee, you know what I mean? And that's a big one.
That's a good one, though.
It's a great one. I love it to death.
We can, my friend Dave Foreman, we can toast a one-line coffee.
Oh, I love one line.
And
you know, coffee's such a big part of my life, but, you know, I've always wanted more ritual in my life, like having that kind of, every time I sit down to work, you know, I've got, excuse me, this and this laid out, and I'm, you know, I'm not that way. I think, you know, I'm big into fashion and stuff, and I think a lot about people that have uniforms in fashion, you know, Michael Kors with this, like, blazer and white t-shirt, you know. I'm always envious of those people, like, because you know their closet at home is just like
it's just easy.
100 of those things, and I'm, you know, how cool would that be? But I can never, you know, as much as I value that idea, I can never do it. You know, I just think it's too much fun to be like, today I'm going to go work at One Line Coffee. Today I'm going to, you know, sit outside, or, you know what, I'm going to work later and I'm going to do this instead. Like, I don't know, I you know, not having a schedule and stuff, but I do love the idea of the body sort of responding to, like, chemicals or food or drink or just signals to say, this is when we're about to do something.
Well, and I think you can sort of, because it's, for me, it's every day, and it's been every day.
So you write every day?
Yeah.
Or work every day?
And if there's going to be a day where I can't, I just know that it's not going to be possible, I'll get it done. I'll sort of double up on a day or something like that. There's been, I think, 5 days in the last 6 years where I haven't written.
Really?
And they were where it wasn't made up in some way, or just, it was my 5th anniversary trip. It was sort of, okay, you're just not.
This is not the right time.
Right. So, other than that, it's planned for in advance. Like, if I'm going to go on vacation, I'll take the couple months before that to sort of pick up extra days. And there'll be a couple weeks where I'm not working on anything, but those days have sort of been made up. So to sort of keep things going and keep trying different things. So I'll have a lot of conversations with people where they'll be like, well, you know, I tried this, so I spent like 3 months and it just didn't work. And they'll be sort of sullen about that. Well, I don't want to be prolific, I want to be constant. And so I can try a lot of things, and it is okay if I fail. Like, I could have 6 months where if I'm trying something weird and new and a different voice or I'm trying to write about something new that I haven't written before, then it's okay for it doesn't
To
go
decide
well.
that it wasn't
Right,
ready.
like, okay, that didn't work. Now I'll try something different, because those Emily Ass poems,
Yeah,
and at some point there'll be a book just of
which
those.
I do love.
Yeah, and those are great, and those get published easy.
I'm not the only one that loves them.
No.
They're-
So if I just wrote those, then it would be sort of warm and accepting all the time, but I wouldn't be trying anything new or trying to write about. So I finished, and the music angle, I wrote, finished a collection about Sam Cooke and how he was killed.
Okay.
And sort of studied all the things that went into that, and read all the books and the accounts and all the things that led to him being shot in that motel. The book is called Lady You Shot Me, his last words.
Nice.
And so that started becoming like, because my favorite album of all time is Live at the Harlem Club by Sam Cooke. That version of Bring It On Home to Me is just, it's the height. We're talking about ecstatic.
Okay.
Like that's
All
it.
right, that's ecstasy.
So, that started as some sort of like, I just love this, I want to learn about it, and it became something that was completely different than I expected, because you found out that he got tons of women pregnant, and like the going rate was 10 grand. Like the manager would get you 10 grand. And
Wow.
you would just be quiet.
That's right.
And he had the wife
Hush money.
that drank so much that when they were at home, and his second wife, that their son drowned because she was sort of not attentive and was drinking during the day.
Jesus.
And all of these crazy things that ended up happening, and it changed sort of like the hero stance, and changed sort of how I looked at it, and it was
And how you heard the music.
and it was difficult. It was difficult to go through that process, and I didn't start out writing those poems, but I was sort of open. We're talking about being receptive and things. Sort of open
Yeah.
to what it brought me, and I couldn't write like these laudable Sam Cooke things anymore, and really sort of came down on the idea of him being sort of a violent, impregnating asshole.
Violent and impregnating. At the same time.
Right. So
We talk about this a lot, Drew and I, my guitarist, and we butt heads because we have these notions of celebrity, and they're so wrapped up in how we consume the art or music or culture or whatever. And it's like, no one's going to look at a Jackson Pollock, well, maybe someone will, but anyone that knows about him, they're not going to look at his art without thinking, alcoholic,
Right.
terribly violent, troubled. And you see that in the work then. It starts to imbue the work with a new meaning,
Sure.
or another layer of meaning. And so too with music. And Drew and I will argue all the time, or Andy and I, or just whoever, about, some artist that we love, oh, but he's an asshole.
He was terrible.
And it's like, okay. And I mean, this, will come up when I'm like, do you like that song? It's okay, but he's such an asshole. And it's like, well, wait. I'm talking about the music. I
Right.
don't care, that.
No, and it becomes a different
persona.
argument.
Yeah, but maybe it's impossible to separate the two. I don't know. I mean, I think.
Well, let me ask this, because you and I are both adults at this point that have had different stages in our lives where maybe we've been different people
Right.
a little bit.
Right.
And so how much do we sort of view that transition and sort of our state of mind now, and sort of where I came from was I was sort of like, well, you never thought about these things before. It didn't matter.
Right.
So has it changed that a husband or father or not, sober, things like that? Like, how does that change
Yeah.
how we look at, because we've gone through a transition.
No, for sure. I mean, I think it's, on the one hand, you'll get people that say, well, I'm not that person anymore. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I think
Right.
we are always that person. Has a veil been lifted, has a filter been removed, has, a psychic change occurred, and
Sure.
I love that phrase because I think it's true. When you have a psychic change, your sort of id, your the sort of inner workings of your personality, consciousness all change. Hopefully for the better.
Right.
Sometimes for the worse. But no, when you have that happen, you're the same person, but I think you're able to sort of a couple of things. One is bring new talents and skills and energy to the table, or personality traits. You can start to develop things that maybe I wasn't a very giving person once upon a time, and now I'm a giver, and I love to give and sort of try to make somebody happy. That's a huge part of it. but also, start to reflect. Like, I don't think that when you're caught up in that, whatever that trauma or that sickness or whatever that disease is that you're caught up in mentally or physically or emotionally or spiritually, it's almost impossible to look backwards at that moment. You can never really think about where you've been or where you're headed. You're always just sitting right there in the moment, which is a terrible moment. It's not a good Zen.
No.
But now I feel like there's a ton of reflection, and you can sort of use that. We don't dwell on the past, but we learn from it. And I think that becomes this, constant informing of the moment with what I've learned from the past. Don't really care about the future because I don't control it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That living present tense becomes a lot more viable and real to me. Like going to LA for 2 months, I felt so present, and it sounds cliche, and all that shit sounds so trite, but it's so true.
But once you drive across the desert, that thing's gonna,
It's less trite in the desert
Right.
when it's 120 degrees outside and you can't get out of your car. Shit becomes a little more tactile and real, and I don't know. Like, I love when cliches become true and no longer fucking cliche.
Right.
And you've proven it, it's like there's a reason that became a cliche, because it's been true for millions of other people, and I'm not unique, and nothing I've ever felt in my life, got in an argument last night about this at the bar, no emotion I've ever felt is unique. I'm not the first to feel that, and owning that is a big part of crushing the ego and saying, whatever I'm writing about, whatever I'm singing about, hundreds of other people have done that before.
Right.
That doesn't mean it can't be worthwhile and valuable in and of itself, and that my take on it and sort of what I twist it with can be fun, different. But I don't know. It's like it's easy to get hung up on ego when you're performing, and I'm sure you
when you've got your name on the
you're putting it out, and it's your heart and it's your soul, and you care about that thing. And how do you deal with the constant push-pull of, do I care too much or do I care enough?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, how do you deal with that? Is it easy for you to be like, nobody cares about this poem. I love it, god damn it, but no one wants to pick it up. You know what I mean? And it's like, we all have days where we care too much, I think.
Well, and I, in the new book that came out, there's the poem at the end that's got talking about Emily receiving the Emily poems and like getting chesty about them.
Chesty LaRue.
There you go. And it was a poem that didn't get picked up anywhere, but I was like, this is just sort of flipping all of the Emily poems on their head. Yeah. And sort of critiquing the fact that I'm writing them, because I developed an issue. Like I'm sort of wresting some control away from her by writing Emily as poems and changing her and giving her these other things. And what right do I fucking have?
She's going to read those and respond and so in her own way.
What happened to her in the process is she was at enough readings, and she started to sit up in her chair a little bit more. And I'm Emily. And sort of had a response to being the actual Emily in a crowd, hearing and sort of their not impersonations, but impressions of her that sort of expand a little bit. Mm-hmm. And sometimes in the poems she's a little meaner, and sometimes she's a little more sexual, sometimes she's a little all these things. And so she's hearing that, and so I'm sort of just going, that's sort of how she takes it in and sort of discusses it. And that's the last poem in the book, sort of that things get sort of flipped on their head. And I think the last line of the poem is, I suppose I've gotten away with it.
Right.
Because she's accepting that I've sort of taken her name, taken all these different angles.
Let me play with her idea of herself.
And she's cool with it.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure that she should be, but she is.
Right.
So if it becomes a discussion about gender and power and things like that, there's a way to read into it that I've had to go sort of over and go, well, I'm not sure this is a good idea.
That's a negotiation, though, within the relationship itself.
Sure.
There's so many kind of interesting facets of that. There's the poetic of you're creating sort of a persona based on a very real person that's very close to you, that is also going to read and respond and react and internalize her own way, behaviorally, psychologically, all those ways. Then there's the public sort of, oh, that's Emily. I know her.
Sure.
I've read about her. I mean, you know,
Yep.
we all do that with the art that we consume, that we love. You know, we think we know. I feel like Jason Schwartzman and I could be friends. You know what I mean? Tom Hardy, we could totally hang out. You know, I got a crush on you. Let me tell you about it. You know, it's like, because we see the films, we feel like we know these people, but, I mean, acting is its own, you know, how much of that's real and not.
I've sort of waited to be taken to task in a review sometime, or waited for that. I'm waiting for that voice to come in and just sort of go, why is he fucking gonna start? Let the woman be the woman. Let her talk. Let her do her thing. And
but I do love those poems. I mean, I think so. I was reading some of them the other day, and there's a couple published in a journal called Stag Pie or Stag something. Red Stag? I can't remember, but I do remember the line.
Sure.
There was a line in one of the Emily As poems that I would, you know, and this is, I think, what you're so good at, the same way like Robert Bly or like some of these, like, some of the stylistic, Charles Simic, the poets that you remind me of in a very good way, but this kind of one line where that's all I need, and it's, you know, I complete the weather to confuse them all. And it's like, you know, you're talking about birds, and the reason I love the poems is that it's, for me, the woman, you know, or you can insert whatever thing that is most important. The relationships in our lives usually, or our spiritual life or whatever, becomes the metaphor, you know, for 100 other things. You know what I mean? So Emily As, beautiful metaphor for then not just the woman, but also life and the creative act, and you know,
how do you stretch the tether and fuck with it and make it dance and do different things?
It's limitless too, which is also fun because you never run out of ideas.
This is true. So, but then you start engaging other artists and taking, like I've done, like some musicians, like Emily has written by Amanda Shires, or Emily has written by, and just doing sort of like homage poems. And so, no, but it's fun. But I'm still a little wary that there's danger around the bend, that something's going to happen at some point. But
hey, you know, I've written so many songs that, and this I think just happened 2 days ago.
Okay.
You know, I had a new song for the band to play, and I taught it to them, and walked away. Great practice, great rehearsal. Get a text from my drummer. I thought that sounded familiar, and it's like a video by this band, The Knife, and it's very similar. Very similar chord progression.
Not enough to put you in court. But
no, not at all. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I've written songs that were literally the same. I mean, you know, after the fact, you go back and you say, oh my God, that's a, you know, Stooges song.
That's how that went in my head, right?
Yeah, it's like you don't realize it at the time, but we all do it, you know, when we read or consume whatever, or listen to something, you walk around with it in your head, if it's got the earworm, you know, and you're kind of just internalizing it, digesting it, and then when you go to create, it's still kind of spinning around, so you're like, oh yeah, that melody sounds really good, because I just heard it in that song. So it's, you know, there's always that danger, I think, of like, how much of what we consume is being spit back out.
And you fall in love with different phrases. I had trouble really with, there's a Lydia Lovelace song that's got the phrase flat, black, and gold in it. And for like 6 months, I had to take the phrase flat, black, and gold out of like dozens of poems. Because I'm like, I just fell in love with the sound of flat, black, and gold. And sort of,
it just
kept kind of like,
wow.
Mother.
That's a great example, but yeah, that's, I mean, we all do that, I think, if we're constant, like you said.
The Terrence Hayes poem, The Same City, where there's the infant being fed oranges, and in the middle of the poem he pivots and says, let me begin again, I want to be holy. Like in the middle, just pivots away from that beautiful scene and goes into something else.
Yeah.
And so, you know, since I read that poem and we got to meet the man back in the day, you know, maybe 10 times in those 10 years or whatever it's been, I've had like a moment in the poem, I'm like, well, I'm going to do that Terrence Hayes pivot. I'm going to have one of those phrases and make it go somewhere
right in the
else.
Middle of it.
Just because, you know, we experienced that and read that, and that was such sort of like, oh, that's a brilliant sort of thing to do. There's no way around it.
I mean, I don't want to get nostalgic, but I mean, the program that we were in, I think, was so special in the sense that it made me not just grateful, but like it was inspiring to think that so many like important people in that field of poetry or poetics or whatever were so easily accessible, and just all of a sudden we're gonna have a conference and they're all gonna come, and all like the biggest names.
Sure.
Also made me realize that the biggest names in poetry are about this big compared to the smallest names in sports or
sure.
Film or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, it's like it's a double-edged sword. It's like I love the fact that if you care enough, those people are just like an email away,
right.
and they will respond.
Yep.
But unfortunately, in this country, and I don't know, maybe the world itself, but poetry just isn't that important, and I don't know.
Not since Pushkin got shot in Russia.
I mean, it's like, shouldn't it be more important? I think it should. You know, do we still have a poet laureate? I don't know.
We do.
Okay, good.
We do.
Who is it?
It just got changed. It's is it Blanco?
I think it's Juan Fleet.
Juan Fleet. Okay.
Herrera.
Yeah.
We should probably look him up.
But
we should vet that shit.
It was Trethewey, and we got to meet. And my favorite still from that Rainbow Darkness conference got put together was Wanda Coleman. It's still like, because she showed up at everything. She came to the master's reading. She danced with everyone at the party, and So they're gonna name one of the LA branches the library after her, which is awesome. She deserved. I still play my car in my classes, so they can hear Wanda Coleman curse just fantastically.
Nice.
So that's a good starting point. Thank you for coming and teaching me how to make risotto.
Hey.
I feel like I can do it as long as I've got my fancy butter. And,
that's right. That's all you need.
Long live Montauk Trash.
My
and
pleasure,
keep
man.
playing songs like Lip Bone. And,
hey, love to play.
Dance with me. That's what I was listening to when I was working out.
Nice.
I was preparing. Not really. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Cool, man.
All right. So thanks to Kevin for stopping by, and we'll talk to you next month. Fun. We got to make mushroom risotto. I think I know how to do it now. Maybe I'll try it next time without Kevin. So thanks to Kevin Hollo for sitting down and talking with us like he did, and for teaching us the risotto. The next cookbook coming out is the SAFTA holiday one down in Knoxville. We're going to head down to Knoxville and invite a bunch of people and do a big meal and film some of the cooking and some of the talk, and it should be a blast. Other than that, we've got the new Sundress calendars are out for 2016. Lots of fun gender-bending pictures, and I know I saw a picture of my friend Rhonda taking an axe to a tree, so I'm very excited to get a copy of this calendar. Other than that, please remember that Sundress titles make an awesome Christmas present. I, myself, do not have all of them, so if you wanted to get, say, Sandy Marchetti's new book and send that to me, or Les Kay's chapbook, The Bureau, that would be awesome. You could just present it to me. Anyway, so thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month for the SAFTA Holiday Cookbook. All my best.